Geez, according to the weather forecast for today in the UK, it's going pretty bad again, which means more rain, so what a miserable day that is. But on the plus side though, we are playing some more Mario Luigi Superstar Saga, but that's besides the point. Greetings ladies and gentlemen, it is I am the one and only Silver the Hedgehog here, and once again I am back for the likes of the Mexi Toys videos. And ladies and gentlemen, welcome back for some more of Let's Play of Mario and Luigi Superstar Saga, aka for those who live in Japan, Mario Luigi RPG for the Game Boy Advance. So last time, we somehow basically did manage to explore around the next area in the forms of Bean Kingdom. That's what appears to be for the fact that we did somehow explore Hoo Hoo Village and Hoo Hoo Mountain, which means we did manage to actually make our way to the very top of the mountain to potentially trying to meet up with not only one, but two bosses. So as a result, we did somehow manage to take down Hoo Hoo Woos, and in addition to Dragon Hoo Hoo, which after that, we did somehow manage to let the actual Dragon Hoo Hoo manage to turn into Prince Pearsley, which no matter what though, he's basically on to the actual mission to see what the actual fuss is all about if we somehow make our way to the next location. So because of that, now if you couldn't tell from the actual map, this means about the fact that, as you can tell, we've now come across into a flag, which means that's gonna be our next destination we're about to be heading to. Which, either way, speaking of which though, is that today for this video, is that we are about to be making our way to our next destination. Now, before we get to that though, actually, there is one specific thing that's gonna be important to us. Because of that though, we need to hit our way back to this point right there, after the events of that particular stone thingy decides to actually drop by, and no matter what though, it's up to them to actually craft the Hoo Hoo block to potentially try to craft something. So because of that, and like I said before, and I'll say this again, this is going to be important, especially because after crafting this particular Hoo Hoo stone, this means about the fact that we can now able to actually access to a familiar item, ever since in not only Super Mario RPG, but in addition to Paper Mario as well. But functionally speaking though, it plays a little bit differently compared to the previous two Mario RPG games after all. So because of that, yeah, we can now able to actually access by using hammers. So because of that, not just one hammer, but two hammers for each bro. So the one hammer goes for Mario, and then the other hammer for Luigi. So that way we can now able to actually break those specific rocks now. And on top of that, we can also use that during the combat in a battle sequence. So, and on top of all that stuff though, you can also use that for specifically, although it wasn't until whenever we get to later on though, that way we can able to actually learn hammer techniques. So because of that, from now on though, Mario and Luigi both able to actually access to hammer now. So, and in order to actually use the hammer is by pressing the R button and press the A button once the hammer icon appears. So yeah, that's pretty self-explanatory to see how the hammer actually plays out to be for the sake of time. So, anywho. So yeah, a few things I want to talk about this though, and that's what appears to be for the fact that, well, today's date of course is the 30th of October today, in some cases in 2025 today, and no matter what though, for the fact that not only does recently though, that Luigi's Mansion, the original game, has now finally been added to the Nintendo Switch Online expansion pack specifically for Nintendo Switch 2. So this means that newcomers were able to finally get a chance to play the original Luigi's Mansion on the GameCube version without needing to worry about the forms of trying to pay the ridiculous amount of money for the physical copy, or to be more specific than that if you're not a big fan of the 3DS remake, then obviously though, for the fact that you might able to actually go back on experiencing the original version on the GameCube thanks to the forms of the, the most recent addition to the Nintendo GameCube Nintendo Classics application. So because of that, yeah, that's actually pretty swell, despite the fact that, like I said before, for the fact that there is no way we can able to actually access to widescreen mode for the likes of the forms of Luigi's Mansion, similar to the forms of, you know, The Legend of Zelda The Wind Waker, and you pretty much get the idea for that point. I'm not entirely sure about GB Robo though, I have to be quite frank here, just because no matter what though, Flive can gather that the game itself is really expensive physically for GB Robo, at least to be more specifically the English version and the pound version specifically, because my lord, it was like more than 100 quid for able to try to get the game physically, which is very unbelievable if you ask me. So because of that, well, I suppose no matter what though, thankfully with Nintendo Switch 2, online subscription services will be a better alternative, just in case you could not able to actually try to afford to try to pay the ridiculous amount of money. So anyway, so now we're able to actually break that particular rock, as you can definitely tell. So this means we can now able to proceed into the latest portion of the game. And as you can see, we got ourselves a nut, which means about the fact that you can able to use that for potentially trying to heal up not only Mario, but also Luigi at the same time. So because of that, and you see what I mean, if we dive into the next couple of battles later. So because of that, yeah, let's go ahead and try to use the hammer to smash those rocks and activate that particular thing right there to bring out some more water, so just in case we could potentially try to extinguish that particular flammable rock, because otherwise if you dare touch that flammable rock, you get knocked back a little bit. So, and even then, since we did manage to able to sort that out, this means we can now able to continue proceedings for this point. So, oh, and by the way, along the way though, there might be some other pickups that we can able to try to get, but that's not going to be until specifically until later on, if assuming again we do need to able to learn some more techniques, as a matter of fact. So anyways though, so there's another save album right there, so just in case we could able to save our game quickly. So it may look like we're now almost approaching into the forms of, let's just say, the Bean Castle Town, at least as far as I'm aware, because that's going to be our next destination we're just about to be entering into. So either way, now before we get into the forms of a familiar section, which appears to be a minecart section, obviously though, I just want to make sure there's going to be some items here and there, such as more syrups and even mushrooms. Now, as far as what syrups can do, basically though, this allows you to be able to restore your bro points, basically. And then meanwhile for mushrooms though, they are self-explanatory, much like the forms of Super Mario RPG and Paper Mario, because obviously though, that way it allows you to restore your HP. So, good thing to notice that. So, but anyway, and it's also worth noting for too, is about the fact that recently though, that SpongeBob SquarePants, or to be more specifically, the SpongeBob SquarePants Titans of the Tide game, specifically for Nintendo Switch 2, actually is now available on demo, which means about the fact that we can now able to experience the demo anywhere we go with the forms of our glorious Nintendo Switch 2. But not just that, however though, similar to the forms of how it does it for Sonic X Shadow Generations, what I've realized, but the fact that obviously not only does it contain quality mode, but in addition to performance mode as well. So it means about the fact that if you try to set the game in quality mode, you will able to actually have 30 frames per second, and then meanwhile when it comes to quality standpoint, it'll be so much more cleaner. Whilst compared to the forms of how it does it on performance mode, obviously though you will able to actually access through the game within 60 frames per second, however though you might able to actually lose some bit of texture work. So, kind of like the forms of how it does it for Sonic X Shadow Generations for Nintendo Switch 2 version, but you know, that's besides the point. So here we go on to the next minigame, which appears to be a minecart section. And to put it simply though, this is required in order able to actually progress, by the way, just like the forms of how it does it for border jump. And here's the catch to this though, as you can see, that we're able to actually keep on collecting not only those jewels, but in addition to batteries for Mario, just in case, as you can tell, you can able to actually not only take control of Mario and Luigi for trying to jump over things, but on top of that, just try to able to jump to collect those jewels, but also for the fact that we have to also take control of the flashlight too, so just in case we can able to actually see Luigi's perspective. So because of that though, now in order to able to actually cleared this particular minigame, as you can definitely tell, we do need to collect about 10 jewels, because if you don't have enough, you have to try the course again. So because of that, for the most part it's self-explanatory, but eventually I might as well come back into that at some point if we do manage to able to go after multitude of types of those specific beans as far as this is worth considering for. And luckily for me, I just got enough to able to proceed into the next section, so piece of cake, too easy. Especially it only took me about 1 attempt to do this, so yeah, everything else checks out there basically, so either way. Also, like I said before, it's about the fact that the weather condition at the moment right now in the UK just feels really bad and awful. Like, it's all rainy, gloomy, and you pretty much get the idea of what to expect, especially because we're still on autumn season after all. In fact, it wasn't long until whenever we've realized for the fact that we just literally got about 2 months left until we're about to be approaching into the winter season, so... But anyway, and it's also worth noting for too, is about the fact that obviously though, we've just literally got about 1 week left until Hyrule Warriors Age of Imprisonment for Nintendo Switch 2 is releasing. So because of that, I'm not entirely sure if they'll bring in a playable downloadable demo for the game before the actual game itself launches or something like that. I mean, we'll have to wait and see what happens in due time. And not only that though, I'm pretty sure we've only got about, I would say, 14... No wait, it was actually 21 days left actually, or technically 3 weeks left until Kirby Air Riders is releasing. And then meanwhile, when it comes to the forms of Dragon Ball Sparking Zero for both Switch 1 and Switch 2, I believe we've only got about, well, let's just say, 15 days left, basically. So, yeah, as you can tell, we somehow have to force ourselves able to try to deal with a tutorial thing right there, because aside from the fact that you can also use hammers in battles, as you can definitely tell, to do devastating damage. So because of that, now here's the catch to this though, specifically in this game in particular, along with Partners in Time and Bowser's Inside Story, both of which on the Nintendo DS, by the way, not the 3DS remake counterparts, mind you. Yes, every once in a while, though, there's gonna be one of those archaic moments when it comes to more specifically how these hammers handles, because unlike the forms of how it does it on Dream Team, all the way up to Brothership, as far as I'm aware, basically, though, as you can see, if you try to hold the hammer for a long period of time, it actually shakes for a while, and it does not do that much damage if you hold the thing long enough. So because of that, you're about to be speaking out is all about quick timing reactions, and you pretty much get the idea, because, you know, that could be also applied with Partners in Time, and the DS version of Bowser's Inside Story, by the way, because unlike, you know, the 3DS remake, in addition to, you know, Dream Team, Paper Jam, and Brothership, they no longer have the shakiness involved every time if you do manage to hold the hammer for a long period of time. So, yeah, that's something worth noting for the sake of the forms of that particular comparison, specifically how these hammers plays out to be. So, but either way, I'm pretty sure we're done with the actual tutorial for right about now, until specifically later on that we will able to actually try to master some other techniques that we cannot normally try to perform, as long as we could able to potentially try to able to deal with, like, all kinds of stuff, basically. So, although, relatively speaking, we will be back onto the forms of Hoo Mountain at some point, if we do manage to able to actually try to learn some new techniques. So because of that, for now, let's go ahead and, before we try to explore, I just want to make sure if there's some other bits I was missing, which I don't think there's going to be anything else we can do, aside from just trying to grab some more items at one point, like, you know, more syrups and more mushrooms, essentially, and of course, obtaining some more coins here and there, so just in case, at some point throughout the whole game, that we will come across into shopping and what have you. So because of that, yeah, relatively speaking, let's just see what's on the north portion of this area first. And if you're probably wondering, what's up with this familiar Boo statue? Well, that's not going to be until for later, because we do need to learn that specific technique until specifically later on. So this might take a bit while. So, of course, if you really want to try the minecart minigame again, then by all means, you can able to actually hit back there. But of course, I'm not going to, because even then, I'm trying to do that in a later time. So just in case I can able to actually try to get some more beans at one point. So anyway, so here's another enemy right there, which in order to be able to try to deal with this enemy right there, despite the hit detection needs to be so accurate, basically though, you need to only require a hammer, because similar to the forms of how it does it on Paper Mario for spiky based enemies, basically though, jumping is not recommendable, but only hammer can, because obviously though, if you dare select jump right at the forms of those spiny looking enemies, which obviously those enemies are Shy P. Shy P does have 8 HP, and every time you defeat them, you get 2 experience points, and then meanwhile, you also get 1 or 2 coins in brackets as far as I'm aware. So anyway, so it may look like at the moment right now we can able to actually explore into Bean Outskirts. So meaning it's almost going to be like an overworld kind of scenario when it comes to Bean Kingdom as it stands. So but either way, so yeah, because for the most part though, it's about the fact that the majority of the locations in Bean Kingdom is actually interconnected. So every time whenever we do manage to able to like, well, thankfully though, there's actually a fast travel system if you find the actual walking on foot might be felt a bit tiring in some points. Well, obviously though, for the fact that, well, unfortunately though, I accidentally ignored the first green warp pipe, which, don't worry, I'll be back for that at some point. So either way, so anyways, let's go ahead and try to do a first strike on that particular Shy P if we decide to get this. There we go. So keep that in mind though, every time if you do manage to perform a first strike with the hammer, instead of trying to deal with some extra amount of damage with those enemies, so instead, they obviously stun them for a while, and then as a result, that way, they will able to actually get themselves back up again if you somehow manage to able to done with your turn within the forms of both Mario and Luigi respectively. So but anyway, oh, there's another new enemy right there, which fundamentally speaking of, these guys are known as, well, if we manage to able to get our turn first. So okay, there we go. So anyway, let's go and use jump onto a swarm, that's what it's called. Yeah, because I apologize about the forms of tongue twisting at the end, folks, but either way. I mean, mind you, though, for the fact that until tomorrow anyway, I promise I'll let Sonic will definitely going to be able to try to wrap things up in terms of Luigi's Mansion 3 tomorrow, because by that time until tomorrow, Halloween is starting tomorrow, which means about the fact that I could able to actually check out Marvel Zombies for the first time on Disney+. Mind you, there's only like 4 episodes or something like that. I mean, mind you though, it has been quite a while since I actually mentioned something related to Marvel, ever since, you know, that Disney Plus release of the Fantastic Four First Steps is finally going to be coming until the next couple of days, specifically, let's just say, 6 days left at this point for this particular recording session, so that's sure it's something. So anyways, with those swarm enemies right there, they do have 14 HP, and every time you defeat them, I believe you get about 14 experience points. I may be wrong, because mind you though, I didn't exactly look upon that much of brackets as much, but that's just mainly because no matter what though, I'm just a little bit more of a, an exact, details about the forms of specific status every time if you do manage to defeat these enemies as regular, but that's besides the point. So anyway, it is also out of nowhere that Super Mario 3D All-Stars specifically for the fact that they somehow released a new version update, which appears to be version 1.1.4, and there's nothing too special about it. It just simply says on the forms that particular description, and they did state this. Several issues have been addressed to improve gameplay on Nintendo Switch 2, and that's about it basically. So because of that, it just feels a bit obsolete at this point, because after all though, we've now already got, you know, not only Super Mario 64, but in addition to Super Mario Sunshine on the 3D All-Stars compilation, and meanwhile we've also got 2 different versions of Super Mario Galaxy 1 on Switch 1 and technically Switch 2 for its backwards compatibility and enhanced version of that, and of course not to mention though Super Mario Galaxy 2, and of course most notably Super Mario 3D World plus Bowser's Fury and Super Mario Odyssey, which I know for a fact that we are still missing one of them, which appears to be, well, of course, Super Mario 3D Land, but I really still can't guarantee if that's gonna happen anytime soon, because after all, though, I think the amount of content for Super Mario Bros. 40th anniversary was actually pretty good enough. I mean, there might be some mixed receptions here and there, likely also for yet another Mario Tennis game, but still. But yeah, I believe for the most part though, that's as far as I can try to talk about in terms of today's discussion, I'm afraid. I mean, sure, no matter what though, it's about the fact that I've already explained well enough as it stands when it comes to more specifically for the fact that maybe I can probably try out the demo of SpongeBob SquarePants Titans of the Tide demo for specifically on Nintendo Switch 2, that's the thing. Although, here's the catch to this too, for the fact that I honestly have no clue if I decided able to go after the physical version, because obviously though, unfortunately though, you probably already realized that game was also part of the stupid game keycard release, so yeah, it's a little bit of a downside, because unlike Battle for Bikini Bottom Rehydrated, as well as the Cosmic Shake on Switch 1, they don't require the stupid game key cards, because you get the game from the start on the actual game cards, but unfortunately though, for the likes of the forms of, you know, Titans of the Tide, that's obviously though we have to deal with the forms of that stupid game key card release, so still it's rather unfortunate, you know? But on the plus side though, is about the fact that aside from that, it looks like that Zootropolis 2, or Zootopia 2, for those of you who lived in North America, is actually getting very, very close to its release. In fact, once the actual film comes out, I might be able to actually try to invite Blaze the Cat to join with me to potentially try to able to watch that particular sequel to the most critically acclaimed amazing films of all time, Zootropolis or Zootopia, because, you know, it's been 9 years since the first film came out, so, which we get ahead of ourselves, so. Now, aside from that, though, is about the fact that I get the feeling, for the fact that at this point in time, that there was actually, you can able to actually try to able to explore into the south portion of, you know, Bean outskirts if you decided to, but I'm probably not gonna go there just yet, because, you know, we have to be able to go exactly what the game tells me to go into the Bean Castle Town. So because of that, yeah, let's go and try to deal with some more, you know, Sharpies right there to potentially try to, you know, keep on increasing our experience points if we wanted to. So, yeah, that's gonna be our part of the plan when it comes to, you know, any other battles in particular. I mean, sure, much like the forms of how it does it for not only Super Mario RPG, but in addition to Paper Mario, if you do manage to able to face off against with the previous enemies from the previous areas or worlds even, yes, you will able to actually get lesser experience points, or even sometimes you get nothing at all if you do manage to take down those weak enemies if you become overpowered. So because of that, similar to the forms of how it does it on most RPGs back in the day, along with the forms of some future installments as well, except with the forms of, you know, Paper Mario Sticker Star, Color Splash, and the Origami King, but that's mainly because, you know, they removed the RPG elements, which is pretty sad, so. But anyway, the castle town is just up ahead onto the east portion of this particular area. So we'll hit there right now, and oh my lord, what the heck is happening here? Jeez, the entire town has been deserted. I wonder what's caused all this havoc, I wonder. Well, we'll never know as soon as we're able to talk to one of those townspeople, as far as you might able to expect, so. But anyway, so, yeah, aside from all that stuff though, there's also another thing else I want to point out too, is that did you guys know, well, to be more specifically for Nickelodeon fans as far as I'm aware, speaking of which, when it comes to SpongeBob related, it's been 20 years ago since that Nicktoons Unite game did somehow came out in 2005. Well, not just by the forms of, I would say it did came out on the Nintendo GameCube as well as PlayStation 2. I'm not entirely sure about the Xbox though, and also with the forms of Game Boy Advance, and I would say the DS as well, because I do know for one thing, for the fact that Sonic did tell me about this back then, that back in the day, we used to have the DS version of Nicktoons Unite, back in very long time ago, but unfortunately though we got the bootleg copy of the game, which means that every time you get a bootleg DS game, sometimes the actual description is not exactly corrected, and not to mention though, is that obviously though I do realize that unfortunately though those bootleg DS games are not compatible with DSi or DSi XL, because it only works on the original DS, including DS Lite, as far as I'm aware. I mean, mind you though, that back in the day, that we used to have the bootleg versions of not only Nicktoons Unite for the DS, but also Sega Superstars Tennis back in the day for the DS. And ultimately though, we've lost our progress if we somehow did not touch upon those bootleg versions of those games for a very, very long time, which is especially noticeable that we somehow got ripped off from that particular purchase in regards to the phones to try to check out the bootleg versions of the actual genuine copies of video games. So that's the reason why that we attempt able to try our best able to avoid the pirated version of some of these video games from time to time, just because of all that. Well, not only in terms of the forms of how we're gonna get ripped off from the lack of save system, and it's also because of how the fact that, well, the actual copy just does not look very genuine at all. So, well, I have no idea why somehow questioning that, to be quite frank here, but either way. So, but still, regardless of such though, it's about the fact that we still fully appreciate that we finally got ourselves the Sega Superstars Tennis genuine copy within a pretty reasonable, good price, at least to be more specifically at one of those gaming stores in particular. So with all that second-hand stores, as if you probably couldn't tell, because even then, that will got to save that more discussions on that fact until whatever we dive into next year's June, for specifically trying to celebrate the 35th anniversary of Sonic the Hedgehog, which you totally get the idea. But anyway, alongside with that though, there's also a new update is going to be on its way for No Man's Sky. No surprise there when it comes to not only for Nintendo Switch, but in addition to Nintendo Switch 2 version as well. So no matter what though, it's going to be a Breach update. So yeah, I've got nothing else to say. So because of that, I honestly have no interest in that personally. But at the very least though, for the fact that also from out of nowhere, there's actually a new trailer for specifically the 25th anniversary of that particular celebration of a little bit of a mixed bag film, which appears to be Dr. Seuss's How the Grinch Who Stole Christmas, or specifically is actually based off from the original 2000 release, because obviously it does feature the, you know, the comedy actor by the forms of Jim Carrey, and no matter what though, he did a really great job when it comes to acting, well, not just by the forms of in Dr. Robotnik, obviously, when it comes to not one, but 3 Sonic movies, including General Robotnik, and also with the forms of, I did recently check out Liar Liar, because aside from that though, that not only he's the main character in Liar Liar, but it's also for the fact that I do realize that there's actually the actress who's also appeared in Liar Liar, which I definitely heard about that familiar actress before, because she also did Celia from the likes of Monsters Inc., including Monsters at Work. So yeah, you totally get the idea why I was expecting to talk about this. So, oh yeah, aside from all that stuff though, aside from the forms of certain blocks that we've already encountered with, but there's also going to be some occasional hidden blocks here and there, which I will try my best able to try to find most of these hidden blocks anyway, until we're able to actually try to encounter, well, let's just say, as far as I've realized, there's only like 42 hidden blocks in total, so hopefully I might able to actually check those out. And alongside with that though, you do realize about the fact that there's actually some a lot of X marks the spot kind of spots, depending on what specific locations you go into, which even then, again, we'll get into more details about that if we dive into the next couple of points worth noting for. But for now, we somehow ended up in the underground sewers, as far as I'm aware, because it's filled to the brim with a lot of pipes and stuff like that, so I guess it's now up to us to potentially try to sort out with the forms of those particular pipes. So yeah, it looks like no matter what though, we're now in the Bean Bean Castle sewers. So, and also there are even more enemy encounters, such as the let's just say a recolored variation of those fighter flies, but it's actually now called Superfly. Superfly does have 10 HP, and every time you defeat them, you get about, I would say, 12 experience points. And of course, you're able to actually get 2 or 4, as in brackets, for coins. So, yeah, got nothing else to add. I mean, this is basically slightly a trickier version of Fighter Fly, ever since in the Stardust Fields. So, and in this part right there, we do need able to require the hammer to able to try to sort out with these particular pipes. So, or to be more accurate though, is about the fact that we do need to fix up the forms of multitude of areas in the actual sewers. So, but anyway, here's another new enemy right here, which appears to be Spiny. Spiny does have 14 HP, and every time you defeat them, you're able to actually get 15 experience points, and of course, you're able to actually get about 1 coin or 2 coins, as in brackets though. So no matter what though, I can't really judge on that front. So, but I digress. I mean, sometimes though, trying to do RPG Let's Plays to me though can be felt a bit tricky sometimes, because I can't really tell about the exact details about the forms of specific factors or anything else like that. Also, I really love the actual victory animation from Mario every time he performs a level up, and potentially speaking of, he's obviously attempts to like do a boogie shake or something like that, and then meanwhile for Luigi, he just simply jumps for joy. So because of that though, now as far as I do realize for something out of it though, is about the fact that, well, in this game specifically, on the Game Boy Advance version of Superstar Saga, I don't like the fact that they somehow sometimes trick you, depending on the actual timing issue, when it comes to what specific numbers you want to aim for, if you try to increase your status and what have you. Obviously though, for the fact that if you time your button correctly, sometimes though, the slots can be felt a bit, well, picky sometimes, because I was trying to aim for not only 2, but 3, or occasional rare 4 numbers, as far as I'm aware, when it comes to increasing our status, that sometimes though, it just somehow skips that number and just go on to a different number instead, which thankfully it did manage to fix that in Partners in Time all the way up to, let's just say, Bowser's Inside Story 3DS Remake, because unfortunately though, Brothership just somehow removes, in addition to Paper Jam as well, because between both of those games in particular, sadly does not give you the opportunity to increase even more status, depending on the forms of what status you want to increase, in between, you know, HP, bros points, and, or bros points, I should say. And of course, not to mention though, with, attack power, defense, speed, and even stash. So, anyway, now, aside from that though, is that we can technically try to able to explore into the shops, as you saw from earlier, but at the moment right now, we can only buy items, which, if you couldn't tell, I attempt to save my coins up for later, because, as you can definitely tell, for the fact that until later on, we can able to actually decide able to equip one of our gears and what have you. It's actually very similar to the forms of how it does in Super Mario RPG, when it comes to more specifically trying to equip any other gears, because even then, not only does it help you throughout the majority of some battles, but also it also increases your status depending on the forms of what specific gears or accessories you somehow equipped. So, but then again, no, we will save that particular discussion onto that fact until whatever we dive into next week, because like I said before, that Luigi's Mansion 3's final video should be up until tomorrow, because just in time for Halloween, although I was expecting actually to try to able to actually continue playing through some more Castlevania games, specifically, not only for the Game Boy games, but in addition to some obscure ones too. But let's just say we'll save that until next year for 2026 to make sure of the fact that we want to get these, you know, any other Mario games done before we're able to actually try to move along to other franchises we'd like to check out. So, but either way, so let's go and try to deal with some more Spinies here, and in addition to, you know, Superfly. So, and I'm pretty sure that's all the enemies we can able to encounter in the sewers. I mean, I'm almost assuming for the fact that they're trying to bring in let's just say, creeper crawly, whatever you want to call it, in Mario Bros. But I know for a fact it's been quite a while since we've last played Mario Bros. After the events of likely a couple of days back, since on the 12th of October, since they're both, you know, Mario and Sonic did somehow manage to able to play for that particular game, not just by the forms of the arcade version, but as well as the NES version as well, so... But either way. So of course, potentially we somehow use the hammer, so that means you'll just stun those enemies in no time, so... Anywho though, so yeah, we pretty much get the idea about the forms of how this whole process plays out to be. I mean, like I said before, is that the battle transitions goes by a lot quicker in comparison to the 3DS remake, because I know for a fact that the 3DS games obviously occasionally sometimes managed able to load the actual transitions and stuff like that, and as well as that though, same applies with the forms of Brothership as well, because in Brothership though, it does have some very horrendous load times if you manage to play through the game on Switch 1, but thankfully in Switch 2, it does manage to fix that issue, along with the frame rate problems. Oh man, you might see nothing yet, so... But I do know for certain for one thing is about the fact that until next week that that will mark the 1-year anniversary of the game's release of Mario Luigi Brothership, which unfortunately though, if you couldn't tell, I still haven't exactly beaten the game yet, but this is mainly because not only I was going to be trying out not only other games potentially for Nintendo Switch 2, specifically Donkey Kong Bonanza, Mario Kart World, and etc, but it's also about the fact that I somehow managed able to go lost in places. So because of that though, because of the forms of the main aspect about the forms of Brothership, and that's what appears to be Sail to Sail, something very similar to the forms of The Legend of Zelda The Wind Waker and The Legend of Zelda Phantom Hourglass sometimes. I mean, sometimes though for the fact that it does take a bit of a while to get used to with all that new mechanics in particular, and not only that though, I just got so many games to check out, you know, despite the fact that, like I said before, occasionally though we no longer have any other games for that matter, because I will admit it though right away, if you couldn't tell already, I recently did manage able to reshuffle my shelving, as far as you can definitely tell or did not know, because that's mainly because eventually at some point, if Nintendo still supports with Nintendo Switch or Nintendo Switch 2 in the near distant future, there's going to be a couple of times though for the fact that I might have to reorganize my shelving spaces in between the physical versions of not only games themselves, but in addition to DVDs and occasional Blu-rays as well. Like for example though, I believe on my on the actual wall that has been hooking onto, or should I say the actual the shelving units that has been attached on my wall on the left of my bed, basically though, I have no choice but to put not only most of my DreamWorks DVDs on the actual shelving, but in addition to Disney DVDs and Disney Pixar movie DVDs as well, so just in case I can able to actually get enough room and try to switch over to different spots between not only my PlayStation games, but in addition to PlayStation Portable games, PlayStation 2 games, Nintendo Wii U games, and as well as from that though, some small library of my Blu-rays and what have you, in case of, you know, enjoy those films I do enjoy in HD, and you pretty much get the idea. And aside from all that stuff though, the rest are a couple of DVDs ranging from James Bond films, Mission Impossible films, Fast and Furious films, anime films, or anything else like that. At the moment right now is actually at the bottom part of the shelf on the largest shelf I've ever got. And then meanwhile, I still managed able to catch the DS and 3DS games on the third row, and then on the second row, I now have my Wii stuff here and there from now on. And meanwhile, on the first row, at the very top, at the moment right now, I somehow got not only Nintendo Switch 1 games, but in addition to Nintendo Switch 2 games as well at the moment. So, I mean, then again though, if more games are about to be coming out for Nintendo Switch 2, and obviously though, if I was going to be planning to get more Nintendo Switch 2 stuff later down the road, for specifically not only by the end of the year, but in addition to approaching on to next year for 2026, it could be possible for the fact that I could potentially try to obtain let's just say a container box that does have a pile of junk in one of my drawers. So yeah, I definitely need to figure this out. And then all the while, every once in a while though, is that if more Switch 2 games comes into play, and obviously though, I might able to actually try to create a shelving space for dedicated to the majority of Switch 2 stuff. So because of that, that'll be my part of the plan, at least in the near future, that is. But either way, because even then though, because if you couldn't tell already, it's about the fact that the uploading schedules are still going pretty slowly. Well, mind you though, it's probably because I was really busy in the past few days. Especially that, hopefully by that time and during the events of it next year for 2026 if possible, I should miraculously, able to try to catch up at one point for, you know, uploading schedules alike. So, but if not though, well, I do apologize for that. So, anyways though, so let's go and grab some more items from these question mark blocks here and there. And of course try to take down some more enemies as usual. And I think later on though, we might come across into yet another boss fight. So, but that's not going to be until for a while though, because like I said before, well, the majority of the videos for Mario Luigi Superstar Saga, that usually the video length within multiple parts coming up is going to be super duper lengthy, which I know for a fact it might be seems a bit too much for some of you all, but honestly folks, it's just about the fact I just want to get this game's finished before 2026 is going to be approaching, so. But either way, so we somehow got some more experience points right here, so that should be good to go. And let's see if we can able to spin this thing around with the spin jump, and it actually summons yet another spiny coming out of the actual pipe, so, which potentially could be a trap. So in fact, kind of thinking about it though, it's about the fact that, well, I don't know if it's just you, but the fact that no matter what though, actually I just need to concentrate on this right about now, so just in case, before I decide able to mention about the forms of other stuff worth noting for. So yeah, we'll just have to stick around with Hammer for now when it comes to trying to deal with the forms of those spinies and stuff like that, because you know, every time if you accidentally select jump, you will hurt yourself. So because of that, I lose HP in the process, so I don't think it does anything at the moment right now, so I suppose we should probably try to able to actually investigate through, not that way, but I would say we have to go on to the next room, so yeah, I guess we'll have no choice but to go there, so. Alright, so we'll scout to use spin jump here to potentially try to get these things out, and then just try to use hammer, so, and then that way, once we're done with that, then it should able to actually give us the platform to hop onto, and try to make our way to this particular point there. And of course, we can able to do, well, not only grab some more items, as usual, but also try to spin this thing around. I mean, sometimes switching can be felt a bit fickle at times, but once you get the hang of it, though, it might not be so bad after all, so. Although, unlike the 3DS remake, though, you do able to actually have easier access when it comes to, you know, able to actually learn those specific techniques from like spin jumps and hammers and high jump especially, so on the fly by utilizing with the touchscreen and everything. So anyway, so let's go ahead and try to hammer some more of these little things there, and sure enough, once we're done with that, then it should able to actually allow us to able to continue. So yeah, everything else checks out there basically. And there's even more stuff here and there, which I believe that, oh yeah, there's a save album, so I'm guessing that's going to be for the boss coming up. So yeah, let's just do this. And not only it opens up one of those doors, but also two. Like one large one and then the other small door. So, oh yeah, back into what I was saying about the forms of the Grinch 2000 movie, that obviously though is about to get re-released on the theaters, and it's about to due out on the theaters, in the American anyway, for celebrating the 25th anniversary of the original film's release in, you know, The Grinch in 2000, which I've seen that film before, and it's not great. I'm gonna say this right about now, because most of these Dr. Seuss movies are pretty hit and miss. I mean, the infamous example being is The Cat in the Hat, because my lord, that film just looks so horrendous. Although I understand for the fact that, well, I do recognize some actors in particular, like Mike Myers, who also did Shrek, and on top of that, there's also Alec Baldwin, who also did not only Mukunga from the likes of in Madagascar 2, Escape to Africa, and also there's, oh gosh, I just realized that Mr. Conductor from Thomas and the Magic Railroad. Oh god, I was not expecting that, especially that, well, I suppose that particular discussion can wait in another day, because even then, despite the fact that that film is also going to be celebrating its 25th anniversary as well. I mean, back in New Forms have been 5 years ago, they've already technically celebrated the 20th anniversary of the film's release on Blu-ray, but that's only in America, because even then, well, I got nothing else to add. I mean, anyway, let's just change the subject for this point, because even then, so it looks like at the moment right now, we can now able to actually just save our game after realizing we almost triggered the cutscene, which almost gonna be takes us to the next boss battle, but thankfully that doesn't, so... But at the very least though, we're now on to level 10 right now, so yeah, that should be good, and again, like I said, we will definitely try to able to actually keep on grinding some more level ups and all that stuff. Because even then, unlike Paper Mario though, they can only go up to level 27, which that's the only maximum you can only get up to. Whilst in Super Mario RPG, if I could recall, you can only hold up to like level 30, if I could recall, between both the Super Nintendo version and the recent Switch remake version, as far as I'm guessing correctly. And then, as far as Mario Luigi games are concerned, you can now able to actually raise up to like whopping 99 level ups. So, at least potentially speaking, if you try to reach level 99, then it will not increase even further. And this could be also applied with other games as well, like, you know, Paper Mario The Thousand Year Door, as well as Super Paper Mario, because it does have RPG elements after all. So, anyway, so here's the next boss fight right here, and it's almost like a possessed kind of, person that she's actually pretty strong and tough. So anyway, this boss is actually known as Queen Bean. Queen Bean, she does have multiple parts of attacking it, or to be more accurate though, it does have multiple targets. So for instance though, the arms does have 22 HP, and then as far as her main, basically she does have 120 HP, from what I can tell. And if you do manage to defeat Queen Bean, you're able to actually receive not only 10 coins as far as I'm aware, but on top of that, 142 experience points, which I might be wrong, but I'm also able to actually pay close attention after this battle is done. But as you can definitely tell, for the fact that at the moment right now, when it comes to hammers themselves, they are in black at the moment. But eventually at some point later on, similar to the forms of how it does it in Paper Mario, as far as I do realize, for the fact that, again, we'll get into more details about that if we do manage to be able to keep on exploring around more areas all around the forms of Bean Kingdom, basically. So, anyways, let's go and... Oh, that's a very lucky strike right there. So that way we can now move on to the main part, where eventually at some point, as you can see on screen, that one of the beanies decides to come in. Because, as you can definitely tell, you can either try to able to avoid that particular green bean, or if you accidentally step onto one of those beans as projectiles, as what Queen Bean did somehow brought up, basically though, Beanie decides to join the fight, basically. So, dang it, I was so close. Because at one point though, I was expecting to try to pull off the advanced version of that particular, one of the bros attacks. So, oh well, no big deal though. We'll try to go for splash attack right there, or splash bros to potentially, dang, I messed it up. So let's try this again within slow motion right there, and button props, there we go, that way it'll do devastating attacks right there. So And also, if you don't manage to able to try taking care of the those beanies, as soon as you're able to actually take him down, Queen Bean, you have to finish them off too, because that would technically also count as likely trying to finish those off completely, similar to the forms of certain boss fights in Super Mario RPG, including Paper Mario as well. So even then, yeah, you pretty much get the idea about the solution. And in fact, those beanies in particular behave exactly the same as the forms of how it does it in, well, Hoo Hoo Mountain and stuff like that. So, oh yeah, basically though, the Queen Bean's arms decide able to restore itself, and oh wow, they somehow, or she, did manage able to finish off both of those beanies as quickly as possible with that particular shockwave smash attack or anything else like that. So, and also we have to jump over that. And also I just realized that if she gets closer to us, let's go ahead and try to use our nuts right there, so that way we can able to fully restore our HP between both Mario and Luigi, because if you couldn't tell already, I'm not very great when it comes to dodging attacks as much, but that's mainly because not only because of its unexpected attacks has been thrown us off, but as well as that though, we did not hesitate about the phones that, you know, button time prompts you in there. I mean, relatively speaking though, it does take a bit of some practice at one point, so... Because still, I'm pretty much used to with the 3DS remake in terms of the forms of the timing and what have you. I mean, sure enough though, it's about the fact that, again, when you get the timing going, it won't be so bad after all. I mean, it's just about the fact it's one of those moments where you might come across into retro gaming experiences as far as the actual specific stuff is worth noting for, so... Alright, good thing we did not summoning the forms of more beanies as far as enemies are concerned, and oh, that deals so much good damage right there. And we'll do a simple jump for now, and despite the fact it might not do that much damage compared to the bros attacks for sure. So anyway, alright, so I think we should now use Splash Bros attack, and that way we would, dang, I messed it up. And do another jump, and that pretty much does it for Queen Bean. So, how about that? And in addition to getting some more experience points, we somehow reach ourselves our next level up between both Mario, if I can recall, and maybe Luigi as well. So even then though, that way, it'll be a little bit more fair when it comes to likely trying to let not only Mario have the level up, but also Luigi too. So even then though, top notch that is. So either way, and we'll go ahead and increase ourselves some more bros points in case of about the fact if we do manage to able to keep on utilizing our bro moves or bros attacks. Basically though, for the fact it might actually cost more points as to be expected, depending on what difficulty you select, within 1, 2, 3, or even 4 for that matter, because, you know, since about the fact that we've now obviously learned the advanced, well, despite the fact that we still haven't pulled off the specific advanced techniques just yet though, well, regardless of such though, we'll keep on getting a lot of practice for it, especially if you're trying to perform these attacks well enough, then you would able to unlock the advanced technique versions of some of these bros attacks. So anyway, so it may look like we need to make our way to the next destination as well, which fundamentally speaking though is about the fact that we need to make our way to somewhere in the forest area, which I know it's not going to be that far, so I suppose we can now able to actually get back into Bean outskirts, and then we can able to try to explore into the, you know, the forest area, which, kind of thinking about it though, I think that's the reason why that we somehow basically ignored one of the enemies in the actual south portion of that particular outskirts, because, as you can definitely tell, actually, I'll get into more details about that and during at some point until on Monday. But that's mainly because, like I said before, I'll let Sonic able to actually wrap things up everything for Luigi's Mansion 3. So anyway, let's just quickly check in here. So obviously we got more mushrooms here and there in one of those blocks, and also more coins for that particular infinite block. And that's about it for this area. So nothing else to it though, but either way, let's go ahead and save our game. So we're now on to level 11. So not too shabby right there. So I suppose with that being said, folks, is that we should probably end things off this point right here. So join me next time for more of Let's Play of Mario Luigi Superstar Saga, is that we're about to be making our way to the forest area right near to Bean outskirts and able to actually receive a special thing to heal up Queen Bean. So I'll see you guys until that Monday. Later, fellas.